Welcome students for online classes. So today we'll continue with the chapter 4 under statistics, that is presentation of data. So in the earlier session we had studied about the pie chart, we had studied about the frequency diagram, which was the histogram and the frequency polygon. So in this session we'll study about the other types of frequency diagram and the last topic of this chapter, that is arithmetic line graph. Okay. So which were the types of frequency diagram? Histogram, frequency polygon, frequency curve and ogive curve. So we have completed the histogram and the frequency polygon. Today we will study about the frequency curve and the ogive curve. So frequency curve is nothing but a smooth free curve moving around the frequency polygon is known as frequency curve. So all these frequency curves, so all the three frequency curve are being interconnected to each other. So histogram, it is the rectangles which are interconnected to each other. So what is frequency polygon? We find the histogram and later on we find the frequency polygon. How? By finding the midpoints of the histogram. So that is known as frequency polygon. Now what does frequency curve tells us? Frequency curve tells us whatever you have put under the midpoint, whatever midpoint you have taken, what were you doing? You used to draw a line. But frequency curve is the smooth free curve which you go around the frequency polygon, that is known as frequency curve. The frequency curve will not pass through all the points of the frequency polygon. Instead it will move around the frequency curve. So it is a normal curve which you draw from the x-axis. Starting from the x-axis you normally draw. Say for example, when I go to the earlier example, that is under the frequency polygon, here what are we having? We are having many ups and downs. So what are this? Frequency curve tells us there is no many ups and downs. Instead of that, we are drawing a smooth curve so that we get the lengthiest point and the starting point, only so much. So we are just drawing a normal curve so that we get which is the lengthiest point. So that is about the frequency curve diagram, where you draw a normal curve to just show which is the highest value which you need to give. So this is about the frequency curve diagram under the frequency diagram. So the next thing is about, next and the last thing on the frequency diagram is about ogive curve. You can even call it as ogive curve, anything. Okay. So a graphic presentation of cumulative frequency curve. Now what is this cumulative frequency? We have studied in the earlier chapter, the frequency, cumulative frequency is the totals or the cumulative of the frequencies given into consideration. So such a curve may fall maybe in the downward or in the rising trend of the graph, that is known as ogive. Okay, so there are two types of ogive. First one is less than ogive and second one is more than ogive. So this is the example I have taken into consideration. So based on this, based on the same example, I will be showing you the less than ogive and the more than ogive. So what is it? So what is less than ogive? So first and foremost, we have given a class interval and the frequencies. So based upon the frequency, what are we going to do? We need to do the cumulative frequency. So how are we going to do the less than ogive? As the name itself tells, it is less than. So what is less than? So you take into consideration the upper limit of each and every class interval. So what will happen at this particular point of time? Less than, in the sense you take into consideration upper limit. So less than 20 frequency, less than 20 in the sense what is the smallest number? 0 to 20 frequency is 6, so that we directly write the value 6. So what is the next upper value? Less than 40. So what is less than 40? From the small value till less than 40. So the whole thing 0 to 40 we will be taking into consideration. So 0 to 40 is 6 plus 5. So that is 11. So this is the cumulative frequency of the second class. Okay. Now the next third class, less than 60. Now what is this less than 60? We take into consideration the whole thing less than 60. So 33 plus 5 plus 6, that is 44. So this is the less than ogive cumulative frequency. In the same way, for the next one, less than 80, so we'll take into consideration this whole thing and we will be leaving this. Why this is not less than 80? Because it is more than 80. Okay, so we will be taking into consideration, so you cumulative, you total all these values, so it is 58. In the same way, less than 100, in the sense everything you need to take into consideration, that is 64. Now the next and foremost thing what you need to do, you need to draw a graph. Okay, so you need to draw a graph. So the graph will be like this. You need to take x-axis and the y-axis. So you take the class interval as x-axis and the frequency as y-axis. So what are the values? So here what will you draw? The cumulative frequency values you will be drawing here. So what are we writing here? The cumulative frequency is 0, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Everything will be written here. So what is the value? So 0 to 20, the value is 6. So what is it? What did we take into consideration? We had taken into consideration the upper limit. So 20 will be 6. So less than 20. So where is 20? 20 is here and 6 will be approximate here. So put a dot or put a x, anything which is easier for you. Okay, so I have taken x, so I have put x, so which will be easier for me. Okay, so the next value, what is it? Less than 40 I had taken into consideration. So what is cumulative frequency? 11. So where is 40? 40 is here and approximately 11 will come here. So put a x. Next thing, 60. What less than 60? The value is 44. The 60 is here. Sorry, the 60 is here and the value 44 will approximately come here. So accordingly draw everything. Next one is 18, last one is 100. So once you put a dot or put a x, later on what are you supposed to do? From the x-axis, from the value 0, you are drawing a line. You are joining all the lines. So this is not a smooth curve, this is a line curve. Okay, sorry, this is a line graph. So based upon this, you would join the dots. So this is the rising trend or the upward trend which shows the positive value. This is known as the less than ogive. Next thing is in the same way, that is more than ogive. What is it? In less than ogive, we used to take into consideration the lower limit. Now here we will take into consideration the we used to take into consideration for less than value the upper limit. Here we will take into consideration the lower limit. So how are we supposed to do? More than ogive, in the sense you take into consideration everything. More than in the sense you take into consideration for the highest value. Highest value in the sense you take from the low value to the highest value. Whatever frequency is given, you will be writing in the cumulative frequency. So we have taken into consideration the lower limit. So more than 0 to 100. So in the earlier we used to take the smallest value, that is less than. So whatever is less than 0, we used to take into consideration for the cumulative frequency. But here we take into consideration the more than, from 0 to 100. Whatever frequency is given, you will be accumulating it and you will be writing in the cumulative frequency column. 6 plus 5 plus 33 plus 14 plus 6. So this is 64. Next one, what is it? More than ogive, more than this particular value. More than this particular value, in the sense you will be leaving this just because this is less than 20. We will be taking more than 20. What is it? More than 20, it comes around this. So we will be calculating all these values, totaling it and writing it in the ogive column. Sorry, cumulative frequency column. Next one, in the same way, 40 to 60. More than 40 it till 100, that is 33, 14, 6, totaling it and writing it here. More than 60 is only so much. 14 plus 6 is 20. Lastly, more than 80, nothing value is there, so write 6 accordingly. So based upon this, we will be, based upon the cumulative frequency, we will be drawing a graph. So what is it? What did we take into consideration? We took into consideration the lower limit. So what is it? So where is 0? 0 is here. So accordingly you will be writing the x-axis, you will be writing the y-axis. This is the first and foremost thing you need to write for each and everything. Where in x-axis, for each centimeter I have taken 10 values, and for y-axis, for each centimeter I have taken 5 values. So this is important, which you need to write for each and every graph. Okay, So what is it? 0 to 20, which is the value we need to take into consideration, and more than ogive, the lower limit, that is 64. 0 is here, 64 is here. You can either put a x, you can either put a dot. Next one, more than 20 to 40. More than 20 to 40 in the sense more than 20 to 100. So 20 is the lower limit we need to take into consideration. The value is 58. So where is 20? 20 is here and the 58 is here. Accordingly, next one is 40, 53, 60 for 20, 80 for 6, and lastly 100 will be for 0. Why 100 is for 0? We had taken into consideration 80 as this particular value and we are having no value for this. So we need to complete our graph so that we put it to the x-axis. So once you draw everything, you just draw a line according to the x which you have put, or the for the dots which you have put. This is more than ogive, which is having the lower trend or the downward trend or the falling trend. This we even call it as the negative trend. Okay, so this is more than ogive. So the next and the main thing under ogive, what do? We take into consideration the both. So this was the less than ogive and this was more than ogive. So once we put both things in the same graph, we get something. If the line meet each other, we get something. This is known as the median. Median means the mid value or the middlemost value. So here middlemost value is 52 for 33 frequency. So the frequency 33 is the median of the ogive curve. So under the histogram we found what was mode, but under ogive curve we find what is median, that is the middlemost value. So this is about the ogive curve. The last topic under this particular chapter is arithmetic line graph. So what is it? A graph showing numerical data with respect to time is known as arithmetic line graph. So based upon time in the sense maybe hour, date, time, week, everything will be taken into consideration and is plotted along the x-axis and the value of the variable along the y-axis. So because it is the time based graph, it is also known as the time series graph. Okay, so I have taken into consideration the example of the year. So here what time I have taken? I have taken into consideration of the year. So in this particular year, how much exports was happened, how much imports was happened, all these things. So based upon this you will be drawing your graph. Okay, so this is the graph where I have taken years in the x-axis and the x value of the variable, that is exports and imports, I have taken into y-axis. You can either make it into the different graph, but it is well and better you make it into the same graph with the both the values. So even if you have any third value, you can perfectly put it into the this particular graph. So what is it? So in the year 1980 to 81, exports was 67, imports was 125. So based upon this 87, the values I have taken into 100 values. So here is how much was the value? 67. 67 is here, and based upon the second value in exports you take 125. Accordingly, for the every year you take into consideration the same value. So this is known as the line graph. Okay, so based upon the values given, you can do the line graph. So this was about the chapter. So the assignment part, how can you obtain a frequency curve? Explain how is it obtained. Second one, explain ogive with proper diagrams. Take any imaginary value of your own, maybe any 3 to 4 values, and do the ogive and even find the median. Okay. How can you obtain a arithmetic line graph? Draw arithmetic line graph with the following values which I have given. So based upon these values you can draw a arithmetic line graph. So this is the end of the chapter. By this end of the chapter we have learnt what things: textual presentation, tabular presentation, and the diagrammatical presentation. Under tabular presentation we do everything based upon the parts of the table. So under diagrammatical presentation we learned three main things: geometrical diagram, second one is frequency diagram, last one is about the arithmetic line graph. So the weightage of marks. So under this chapter, the weightage of marks is of 9 marks. So the questions will be like 1 mark 1 question, 2 mark 1 question, and 6 mark 1 question. So by this we completed this chapter. Thank you, students.